All right, YouTube, what's going on? Happy Thursday. Hope you guys are doing well and hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend as well. Hopefully, you didn't spend too much money and get in debt over Black Friday and Cyber Monday. That being said, let's go and kick things off. And if you're brand new with us, if you're just watching this or tuning in for the first time, here at the Kwak Brothers, we'd like to talk about finance, faith, anything to help you grow in your financial well-being. So we're going to center around this conversation and topic, typically around answering questions about the HELOC strategy. I know a lot of you guys tune in for our videos for that, but I also want to talk about various topics as far as what's going on right now in the economy. As you guys may have seen some headlines, we got updates to the Trump tariffs, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that today in the live stream, as well as an update to the Trump account, right? The $1,000 basically free money that the Trump administration is giving away to children born between January 2025 to, I believe, 2028. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we weave in. So let's go and kick things off. What's going on, Jared? Good to see you back here. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thankful for you to have joined in. All right. Awesome. Yeah, remember to all like the video. If you're not subscribed, and do so. Oh yeah, thanks, Jared. Appreciate that. So to kick things off, just give you guys some quick little announcements, housekeeping items, if you will. So we're gonna be doing these live streams pretty much every week, and Daniel will be joining us towards the next part of the year, right? So early January 2026 is when we'll have more of a formal Kwak Brothers show where Daniel will be joining us and we'll talk through many topics on top of addressing questions. But the live stream that we will have every single week, we're going to be moving them to Wednesday nights. So you might have seen already some of the future live streams that I've scheduled. They will be held Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Central Time. Okay, so it's 8 p.m. Central Time. We're going to be moving this so that more people can obviously tune in. I understand that a lot of people are at work right now. And so we're going to be moving our live streams from Thursdays, 2 p.m. Central, to now Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central Time. So be mindful of that. If you want to put it on your calendar, great. Each live stream, I'll be talking about a topic that's going on in the economy and how that impacts your money, your bottom line, as well as just my own opinion about it. And then, of course, addressing any questions that you have about the HELOC strategy. But not only just that, if you have questions related to investing, paying off debt through other means, other strategies, if you have topics or questions about real estate investing, we can get into that as well. And so just general finance we'll get into if you have any questions, as well as any insights that you're looking for from myself, as well as Daniel, who will be joining us starting in January 2026. So that being said, I'm going to make sure I have my chat open so I can see all of y'all's chat. There we go. Awesome. All right, let me make sure got that. There we go. All right, so let's go and talk about, just to kick things off, about the whole Trump tariff. Now, this is circulating again as a topic of conversation, and there's a lot of unknowns and question marks. I know the Trump tariff has made an impact some way or another in our economy throughout this year, right? Ever since April 2nd of 2025, we've seen what many waterfall changes that we've seen that's almost made a ripple effect. So why is this even a topic? Why is this something I want to talk about and kick off the live stream? Is that just yesterday or the day before, Costco, right, the wholesale retail store, announced that they will be filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration. Now, Costco isn't the only company. There's a slew of many other companies that are joining Costco in this lawsuit, either as a same party or multiple lawsuits against the Trump administration. And the lawsuit is about a lawsuit against the Trump administration looking to get a refund of the Trump tariff. Now, why did Costco and many of these companies, why are they doing this? I think there's two reasons, right? One is it's more of a political theatrics, right? Trying to demonstrate that they are publicly against the Trump tariff, which might happen, to being connected with the second part, and that is they believe with genuine data that the Supreme Court will likely rule against the Trump tariff. So let me set some context and background to how we got here in the first place. Back in 2025, right, or even going before that, right, the Trump administration or Donald Trump, throughout his campaigns, has announced that he's going to be using tariffs to rebalance trade as well as make a fair deal out of many trade arrangements that we have with many different countries, right? The Asian countries, EU's, particularly China was on his top target list, right? And understandably so. But throughout the election in 2024 and the campaigning, the presidential campaign, Trump came out and he was not shy about saying, "Hey, I want to be like, I want to be able to grow the economy using tariffs and use it as a leverage to be able to bring back jobs into the country as well as having the people buy more American goods and services." So fast forward, right? He got elected 2024 and April 2nd, 2025, the Liberation Day came, right? Quote unquote, where the Trump administration using Section 302 as well as the IEEPA, I think it was International Economic, I don't have the full acronym for you guys, but it's IEEPA, uses that to basically emergency powers that gives the president to impose global tariffs against, array of different countries, especially with China. And so we saw obviously the effects of that. And all throughout between April and where we are today, lots have happened, including Congress voting to strike down the global tariffs that Trump has imposed, all the way to August 2029 when the Federal Circuit Court ruled against the Trump tariff. I think it was 7-4 as an unfavorable rule against the Trump tariff. But the Circuit Court obviously gave the Trump administration, I think up till October 16 to appeal, right, to the Supreme Court. And so now it's in Supreme Court to decide, is the Trump tariff legal or illegal? And so November 5th, I believe, was the first time where the Supreme Court held an oral argument and listened, right? And I think already two of the what we believe to what we believe to be our conservative judges, Justice Barrett and Justice Brown, they both held a bit of a skeptical view of the Trump tariff. So a lot of what's going on in the public, and a lot of people who obviously are watching this, believe that there's a pretty good shot, 70% shot, that the Supreme Court will likely rule against Trump and Trump's tariff. So I think this is going to be very interesting because it will hit, obviously, our economy in a broad way in various range. Again, I don't have the crystal ball to tell you exactly what's going to happen, but what I think is going to happen is there's going to be some kind of a middle of the road ruling. I think there's going to be some aspects of the tariff that will be shut down or will be canceled, will be ruled against. But there's going to be other elements of tariffs that will stand on its two legs and will continue to be imposed to specific countries. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Okay, put in the comments. Do you think the Trump tariffs will be struck down by the Supreme Court, like all of it? Or are you kind of like me, where do you feel like it's somewhere in the middle, where some tariffs will probably go, some tariffs will probably stay? Or are you in the opposite camp of like, hey, all the tariffs are going to be gone, we're going to be back to pre-April 2025? Like, what do you guys think? I'm genuinely curious because even, I don't use this platform myself, but I like to see what's going on. If you look at betting markets or betting platforms like Kalshi or Polymarket, both of these platforms suggest that the Trump tariffs are going to be struck down. So it's actually really interesting to see the public opinion kind of sway on this. Let me share my screen. Oh, there we go. So yeah, here it is, right? So this is Polymarket, and again, I don't bet. I don't think I'm not a bettor. I don't think betting is a sound financial strategy to make money. If you're good at it, great, good for you. But even Polymarket suggests that right now there's a 28% chance that the Supreme Court will rule in favor of Trump's tariff, which means 70% chance that the Supreme Court will probably rule against the Trump tariff. So I'm yeah, I'm in the middle where I feel like some of the tariffs will probably go away, some of the tariffs will stay. I think the way it's going to go is um, the more broad tariffs will probably go, but selective, targeted tariffs on the backs of national security concerns will probably stick around. But even then, I don't think is going to have a permanent measure. I think you'll probably have, the Supreme Court will give the president, hey, you can do this for 12 months or 18 months or 24 months, but it won't be a permanent, here to stay type of tariffs. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. Let me see if the chat. Um, Joel says, keep all tariffs, make other countries pay again. It's funny. I'm unsure, nor do I care. So I guess I have no opinion on it. So, I mean, it will impact the economy one way or another. And it already has impacted the economy in such a way that I don't know if you saw during even the Black Friday. I'm not a big Black Friday shopper, but I like to kind of watch other people shop Black Fridays. But even products that, were once they had a sticker of like the manufacturer recommended price was like $100 and it's on the shelf for like 120, right? So what the manufacturer suggested, which I think probably will be from China, they on the product box, right? It said $100, right, as the MSRP. And then on the shelf, right, whether it's like Walmart, Target, or wherever, it said $120. So you're paying more, right, than what the manufacturer suggested price was. So it's gonna have an impact to your bottom line one way or the other. For sure, it's definitely going to favor American companies and factories and manufacturing because they have now a bit of a pricing competitive edge against someone or companies that use, say China to produce their goods and services. So yeah, it's definitely going to make an impact for sure. Um, in terms of goods, stuff coming from Amazon, right? A lot of stuff that's found on Amazon is definitely from overseas. So it would definitely have a measurable impact. So yeah, so that's kind of where I feel like is going middle of the road. We'll have to see. I mean, Supreme Court, it's up to Supreme Court. They won't rule this year. It's too late for that. They will likely rule around April to June of next year, which is kind of crucial in timing because all along Trump's trying to been he's been trying to put together this $2,000 tariff dividend checks, right, to all taxpayers out there. So it's crucial because if the Trump tariff gets canceled, say come April of next year, right, then Trump's plan of creating a $2,000 Trump dividend check probably won't happen, right? Because there's no longer a source of funds or revenue for the U.S. government to make that even happen. So come next April to June, I think for sure. Mark, he's on Zoom, is asking, how does the Trump tariff concern HELOC strategy? It doesn't have an impact specifically against the HELOC itself, right? But it does have an impact in the cash flow because if the average American family is buying certain goods, services that has been manufactured from, places like China, Vietnam, or overseas, then a lot of these families, unless they switch to perhaps like an American-made product, they're going to have to pay more for these goods and services, which has a secondary effect to increasing their living cost, right? So when there's an increase of living cost, it will certainly impact the cash flow to which the homeowner has to be able to pay off their HELOC, right? To be able to pay off their debt much faster. So without there being a drastic adjustments by, these families that go from, switch from a China-made good to a U.S.-made good, we're not going to see, unfortunately, we're not going to see American families come out ahead in terms of positive cash flow. So that's the connection there, Mark. And I talk about these types of macroeconomic topics because every aspects of what happens in the economy can have an impact in our bottom line, right? In terms of our living costs, the cost of living, cost of goods and services, groceries, even if certain things are made in America, if it's assembled in America, there are going to be parts and certain components of maybe certain products that are made in China, right? So, you know, not to go down the rabbit hole or to keep barking on this, but if there's a factory that assembles a toy that just makes, kind of in line with Christmas, let's say there's an American factory that makes toys, right? Well, it's probable that there's going to be components or parts of that toy that comes from China. And so if there's a tariff against China of all incoming goods, then for that American company, they're going to have to pay a little bit more to obviously, buy those parts, bring it from China, and then assemble the rest here in the States. Again, unless the American factory builds that part or component here domestically, then obviously it's going to have a bottom line impact with the total cost of manufacturing this example toy, and the cost of that manufacturing obviously gets passed along to the consumers, which obviously hits the shelves. So again, just that's the that's the mindset, or at least if you're thinking about it logically, right? If you're thinking about the secondary and the I can't even say this word today, tetrarchy effect of the tariff that was imposed back in April, it's going to impact the economy one way or the other, right? So yeah, so that's why I bring this topic to mind in today's live stream, and how it has an impact as well as implication to the HELOC strategy. Okay. All right, so Mark's also got a follow-up question saying, exactly how does the HELOC PLOC strategy help get the home paid off earlier? Please answer and explain in a way my wife can understand the logic of the HELOC slash PLOC strategy. Great question, Mark. So the best way, I guess, a high-level understanding, right? Because oftentimes people ask me, well, Sam, like, why use a HELOC? Why not just do a bi-weekly payment? Or why not just throw extra money into the existing mortgage to pay down the mortgage faster and thus, pay less interest on the mortgage cost? My position is, hey, that's great. Like, yes, extra payments will help you pay less interest and pay off the mortgage faster. The way it's the reason why the HELOC strategy might be different or perhaps might be better in some cases than the extra payment is this anecdote. Okay, this is an analogy that I like to use, right? Let's say I ask you, Mark, and your wife to go to your backyard, okay, and pick a tree that you want to cut down, okay, if you have a tree, that is. And so you and your wife obviously have this general understanding. To cut down a tree, you have to cause a fissure in the tree, tree stump, and you have to use a sharp tool to get that job done. But I didn't specify how you need to cut down the tree, right? So the way that I like to look at just simply paying extra payments to the mortgage directly or doing a bi-weekly payment to the mortgage, it's kind of like using an axe, right? Does using an axe help you cut down a tree? Absolutely. Okay. Take a couple swings, or maybe more than a couple, right? You may have to take a lot of swings at the tree, depending on how big the tree is, and it'll probably come down, right? You'll end up cutting down the tree. But if you had a choice of using a chainsaw, perhaps, right? How much more quicker could you, cut down the tree? So the way that I like to look at the HELOC strategy, or using a HELOC, is using a chainsaw as opposed to just an axe, right? Which takes up more energy and more calories, right? With the chainsaw, definitely more efficient than using an axe. But is it more sophisticated? Do you need to know the inner workings of the chainsaw to use it safely to cut down the tree? Absolutely, right? I mean, you certainly wouldn't want to use a chainsaw to cut down a tree and you've never used a chainsaw before, you probably might need some help, right, in the beginning. So that's the analogy, the anecdote that I like to use. The HELOC strategy, aka the accelerated payoff strategy, is doing extra payments to the mortgage, right? But it's about how efficiently are we doing it and the type of tool we're using to get it done. Another analogy that I like to use, and I'll kind of get into the detail of it, is both a mortgage and a HELOC are a form of a debt, right? They both collateralize your home's equity. They both involve your home. They're both debt, but they are two drastically different type of debt tool. Okay, they're not apples and apples. They are, in fact, apples and oranges. And so when someone says, "Well, I'll just pay extra into the existing mortgage," that's great. But if you have a better tool that allows you to, pay it off faster, why not use the tool, right? And so you might be asking, okay, so what is it about this tool that makes it go faster? I'm glad you asked, right? So the HELOC uses daily interest calculation as opposed to mortgage uses monthly mortgage calculation. Okay, Scott, I know you're trying to record. You're trying to record this. I got this recorded already with Scott, so you're good. You can, in fact, we got this streaming already on YouTube. So if you want to go back and watch it, Scott, you just go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, and you'll get the recording essentially. Okay, so here I'll put it on the Zoom chat for you, Scott, so that you can come back to it. So there we go. All right, so let me make sure you guys are all good here before. Okay, perfect. All right, so going back to my earlier point. The HELOC uses daily interest calculation as opposed to mortgage uses monthly interest calculation. What's the difference? Well, allow me to use a visual aid. Okay, so I'm gonna go find my visual aid. Okay, this is the perfect explanation to it. Okay, let me open this up and I'll share my screen. Okay, there you go. So this is the mortgage interest calculation. Okay, very simple. You take the ending balance times the interest rate divided by 12, and that gets you the monthly interest that you pay subsequently. Now, if you've never seen this before, or if you don't quite understand how the interest is calculated, let me kind of break this down a little bit more. So let's suppose, right, we have a $10,000 mortgage balance. I know, unrealistic, but stay with me here. This is just for demonstration. It's small for a reason to help you understand the math behind it, right? So the $10,000 mortgage balance at 6% interest, okay? And let's suppose that you and your wife, okay, I'm talking to Mark, make a $1,000 principal payment in middle of the month, and thus translating to a $9,000 ending balance. Makes sense, right? So how we calculate the interest on the ending balance is we take the ending balance times, okay, interest rate of 6% divided by 12, which gives us the monthly interest rate, times the ending balance of 9,000. That gives us our $45 of total interest that we owe for the subsequent month. So we're in December, right? And at the end of December, we end up with a $9,000 balance. The next month, we're going to get a statement saying that we're owed $45 of total interest, right? So that's how the mortgage works. Mortgage interest calculation works in terms of determining the interest. Now with the HELOC, it's different. And this is where the advantage of using a HELOC comes to play. So let me close that out. Okay. And open a different screen. All right. Different demo. Here it is, okay? So this is where the HELOC is different, okay? Instead of using the ending balance to calculate the interest, most HELOC uses average daily interest, okay? So how does that work? Well, what it does is the HELOC almost treats like each day as a month, like how we did with the mortgage. So here's how that works. Same parameters, right? $10,000 starting balance, 6% interest, Ending balance exactly the same, 9,000. So the same amount of principal reduction is happening with the early example that I showed you. Okay, so let me actually pull up my chat. Where'd it go? Where did my chat go? Hold on one sec, guys. I got to make sure. All right, there we go. So same kind of starting and ending point as my earlier example, right? So what ends up happening with the HELOC strategy, aka the accelerated payoff strategy, is that we're going to take all of our income, right, our paycheck, and make a quote unquote deposit into the HELOC to lower the daily balance because the interest is calculated on the daily balance. So the assumption is that we have a $5,000 monthly income paid to us, right, first on the 15th. So pretty typical for most families that get paid this way. So on the first of the month, $2,500 check that we got. And what that does, right, we're going to take that $2,500 paycheck and make a principal payment or reduction to the line of credit. So we go from $10,000 to $7,500 daily balance. All right. And from there, the HELOC interest calculation occurs on that daily balance. So we take the interest rate, 6%, divide this by 365, because there's, 365 days in a year. That gives us our daily interest rate. So we take the daily interest rate times the daily balance. That's how we get the $1.23 number. Does that make sense, Mark? Okay, just nod your head, even though I can't see you. All right, so $1.23. Now, because the daily balance stays that way, right? Nothing changes. We're not taking any money out. We're not putting money in. It stays $1.23 every single day as long as the balance stays at $7,500. Does that make sense? Now, remember, a HELOC is a revolving line of credit, meaning that you could make a payment to the HELOC and you can take the money out whenever you need to. All right, just simply go. The way that I get my money out of my line of credit is I go to my lender's mobile app, go in, transfer the funds. 5 seconds later, I got the money in my checking account. Okay, that simple. So it stays at $1.23 all the way through to the next paycheck of $2,500, let's say. And this $2,500 further reduces our daily balance on the line of credit, thus reducing the daily interest cost down to 82 cents per day. So it just keeps going, 82 cents, all the way till we make a $500 draw from the HELOC, right? We're taking $500 out of the HELOC. Now, what am I simulating there? What am I demonstrating there? What I'm demonstrating there is we're taking that money out to pay for utilities or certain payments that we can't use a credit card for. Now, why would that be? Well, I'm a big proponent, if you've seen some of our other videos, Mark, or some, a lot of my YouTube viewers know this, right? A lot of my YouTube viewers and clients do is they use a credit card to pay for groceries, gas, food, all the typical everyday purchases that they make. And as long as you're paying off the credit card statement balance every single month, the credit card companies typically will give you 28 to 30 days of a grace period of interest-free period. So if you always pay off your statement balance and you go out there and buy groceries, right? Costco, right? Speaking of Costco, right? That purchase from the Costco is interest-free, right? For 20 to 38 days. Again, as long as you consistently pay off the statement balance with the credit card. So why am I a proponent of that? Well, if you make a draw from the line of credit, remember the line of credit interest can change depending on what the balance is per day. So I don't want to borrow from the line of credit as long as I can help it. So what I do is I put all my purchases, all my expenses on my credit card so that at the end of the statement period, right, I just take a lump sum draw from the line of credit to completely pay off my credit card statement balance, therefore taking advantage of 0% interest on my credit card because you guys all know credit card interest rates are very, very high. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. So this $500 draw here, let me clear my drawing, is so that I can take that money out separately to pay for bills that I know I can't pay with using a credit card, right? I can't pay for another credit card payment with a credit card, right? So I make a separate draw, right? Just to simulate for that from the line of credit to pay for those other loan payments, utilities, right? Certain bills that I may not be able to use a credit card for. But on this occasion where I draw 3,500 is where I would go ahead and, take that money, pay for the statement balance of my credit card, completely wipe it out, and therefore I don't owe any interest on the credit card. But subsequently, by doing that, I've now increased my daily interest cost on the line of credit. Why? Because increasing the line of credit balance for that day also increases the interest for the line of credit. Does that make sense? So what happens is at the end of the month or whenever the end of the line of credit statement balance or statement period is, the bank is going to round up all of the interest cost, okay, per each day and do a grand sum total, and we get $32.53 of total interest. Okay. With a mortgage, with the same ending balance, this was $45, right? You guys remember all that, right? You guys can go back, a couple minutes ago. With the mortgage at the ending balance of 9,000, we would have had to pay $45 of total interest. But with the line of credit, the way that we've been able to lower the daily balance on the line of credit, we are now taking advantage of lower interest costs per day for a long period of time. And therefore, we now have a lower total interest cost on the line of credit compared to the mortgage. Now, again, we didn't change the interest rate. Okay, the line of credit and mortgage interest rate was exactly the same in the two scenarios. Same starting balance, same exact ending balance, right? And so this is where a lot of people get confused and going, well, why is the HELOC going to save you more money than a mortgage when both use simple interest calculation, both have semi-interest rate, both have the same ending balance? Well, this is why, right? And the reason why the line of credit has to calculate the interest this way, because it's revolving, right? Every day, the borrower could pay back, they can borrow it again, pay back, borrow it again. I mean, hypothetically, right? I could borrow from my line of credit today, pay it back tomorrow, and then borrow again subsequent days and pay it back again the following day. And so because of this, revolving facility, right? The ability to borrow the money anytime you want and to pay it back anytime you want, the banks and the lenders have to account for the fact that the balance is going to be different each day, right? Unlike a mortgage, it's closed-ended, meaning that you can only borrow from it and make payments to it, or excuse me, you could borrow once and make payments, right? And there's really no way of drawing more money out of your equity unless you do a cash out refinance or other forms of refinance that would involve taking the money out. So yeah, so that was a very full-blown, detailed answer. I kind of started out with an analogy, Mark, and then I went really deep, right, to kind of giving you the reason why the HELOCs could be a better tool if used in a certain way. Okay, now I will, preface with the disclaimer saying that this doesn't work for everybody. Okay, there are individuals that should stay away from the strategy, far, far away. If you don't have a disciplined budget, if you're not positive cash flow, if you aren't, if you're not gonna, what's the word I'm looking for? Not challenge. If you're not willing to adjust, I guess, the way you think about money, then this isn't probably gonna work for you. But if you have a budget, if you have positive cash flow, your income is pretty decent, then there's a pretty good chance that this could work for you and will end up having, allowing you to save money and time in paying off your mortgage faster. All right. So Mark, does that make sense? I know, I hope I didn't drown you with too much details there, but I've given you as much as context and anecdotal as possible so that you could, understand how the strategy and why the strategy works at the end of the day. Okay. All right, let me go check on the comments here. But yeah, Mark, if this makes sense to you, give me a thumbs up or say yes, amen, hallelujah, whatever words of affirmation you want to use to indicate that you understood. Otherwise, I'd be more than happy to keep unpacking and giving you some more answers. All right. Next question I see here. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, Tanya says, as an all-in-one provider, I love your channel. Keep up the great work. Education, let's collab. Oh, thanks. You explain it on the calendar, which helps. Yeah, the calendar, it's taken me a long time to figure out how to explain this. I've been teaching this concept for, oh my gosh, it's almost 10 years now. Yeah, I've been the first video I made on YouTube was 2015. And then I think the next set of videos I made was from 2016. And then the video that I made in 2017 was, I think that's the one that blew up. And like everyone started asking me questions about it. So yeah. Jesus says, in my opinion, income tax is coercion mechanism that pushes people into borrowing from banks. It's an interesting perspective, Jesus. I mean, believe me, I don't like income tax either, man. This is why I've in multiple instances I contemplated moving to Texas, Tennessee, Florida. I mean, Florida now is more attractive because the governor there, right, DeSantis is proposing an idea where it would eliminate all real estate property taxes, which I'm like, I mean, for someone that lives in Illinois, I'm like, heck yeah, right? Because where I live, the property taxes are uber expensive. I mean, I know some people who pay like $20,000 a year just on property taxes, man. I mean, it's ungodly amount. It's definitely not fun, and it's not only the property taxes, but the income tax here, right? It's definitely not fun. I definitely don't envy you, Jesus, because if you're in California, you probably pay the most, right? I I I would assume people in California, they pay half of what they earn to taxes. It's kind of like if you work 9 to 5 in California, right? Half of that you're working for the government, and the other half you're working for your family. Right? It's like 4 hours out of the 8, you're basically a servant of the state of government, yeah, the state government, and the other 4 hours you're hoping to provide for your family. That's kind of how I feel about California. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the weather there in California. Some of my best friends are in California. I have families in California. I think it's a good place to be if you're looking for good weather and love, just the nature is beautiful, right? You get everything in California. But man, the taxes, the politics, make, right? Just like I don't envy you, Jesus. Just not fun. Just not fun. All right, let me see. Yeah, not all HELOCs are created equal either, though. Yeah, so I agree. Tenacious mortgage. Um, I know that mine doesn't charge anything for overdraft. It overdrafts 200 at a time. A traditional HELOC still takes advantage average versus AOI. All in one loan uses daily ledger. Yeah, so that's a good point. Tenacious mortgage, right? Again, I don't know your real name, so I'm just going with your username. But yeah, if the HELOC uses daily ledger, that's actually gonna give you even more savings because the average daily balance is different than daily interest cost, right? Because what the average daily balance does, it's slightly different, right? Sometimes it can be confusing, but the average daily balance just takes the average of all your balances of the within your statement period. So if there's 28 days in the statement period, it would take each day, right? And like a snapshot It'll add up all your daily balance and divide it by the number of days in that statement period, and that's your average daily balance. And then times the average daily balance to the interest. That's how you get the average daily interest cost. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Tenacious Mortgage. Again, I don't know your name, so I'm gonna go with that. Okay. Let's see if I missed any questions. Louis LeBron 8995 says, God bless you, my brother in Christ Jesus. Yeah, God bless you too, Louis. Appreciate your blessings and all the more blessings to you, sir. Logan says, I was saying first lien HELOC is not always the best fit for everyone. For example, it can make more sense to do second lien HELOC chunky method. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that because right now in the higher interest rate environment, right, which a lot of first lien HELOCs are going to be around the 6 to 7. I've seen some even as high as 9 or 10% right now. It just doesn't make sense because if you have a 3%, 4% fixed rate mortgage, right? Or if you're incredibly lucky and got something less than that back in 2021, it just doesn't make any sense to refinance that, right? 3% or 4% into a 6 or 7% first lien HELOC. It just will not make sense, okay? Unless you have this crazy amount of cash flow that could help you pay down the balance in such a rapid fashion, it just won't make sense. So even for our clients, vast majority of our clients are going with secondly HELOCs because they can take smaller chunks and relative to the cash flow, they could eliminate the daily balances faster than they would with the first lien HELOC, even though the second lien HELOC interest rates might be higher. So yeah. Um, Scott Ramsey says, does the type of HELOC matter regarding the ability to pay down the mortgage faster? Yes. So just like what Tenacious Mortgage was saying earlier, not all HELOCs are created equal. Okay. HELOCs are what's considered non-qualified mortgages, meaning they don't have to follow or they don't follow the guidelines that the government set. Okay, so Fannie and Freddie Mac, they set guidelines to which mortgages have to be structured in a certain way that meets the government guidelines. Well, quasi-government, because Fannie and Freddie Mac technically is government control, but it's technically still private. It's weird how it works, but Fannie and Freddie Mac has a guideline as long as the bank or the lender wants to have a 30-year mortgage be insured by the quasi-government companies, they have to fit inside of a certain mold. But HELOCs, in most cases, don't have to fit that mold. So what does that mean? Well, and why does that matter? That ultimately gives banks and lenders freedom to kind of customize the HELOC programs with different bells and whistles, different functionality, kind of like what Tenacious Mortgage was saying earlier. There are even HELOCs that use traditional average daily balance, and there are HELOCs that uses daily ledger, a true daily interest cost calculation. So that will certainly have an impact in the overall interest calculation as well. So yes, there are types of HELOCs that will work for the strategy, and there are types of HELOCs that will certainly not work with the strategy. Certainly one that, or type of HELOC that I can think of are the ones that have like massive delays between the time that you submit a payment to the HELOC and vice versa, pulling the money out of the HELOC back into your checking account. So I have worked with banks that it would take like 4 days for the money to come from the HELOC over to checking account. And that's a problem, right? Because the strategy relies on immediate and instant access to the HELOC to make the strategy work, and vice versa, right? You don't want the principal payment you make on the HELOC take 4 days to impact the balance because that's 4 days worth of daily interest cost that will probably be higher because it takes 4 days for the principal payment to catch up. So, a HELOC like that will probably not work with the strategy because there's just so much delay happening between the time that you do make the principal payment to the HELOC versus when it should affect the daily interest cost calculation. Okay. All right. Jesus says, I think smaller chunk is ideal. A lot of newbies are in such a hurry to be out of debt that they transfer a huge chunk from the line to the mortgage and end up in worse shape. I agree with you, Jesus, right? I 100% agree. Okay. Mark has a follow-up saying, not really considering all the Facebook ads for the HELOC method advertise that you can pay off your home in 5 to 10 years instead of 30 years without changing the amount or making extra per month. But when you start trying to explain how it works, you admitted that I'd be paying biweekly instead of a monthly to pay off the mortgage faster. No, you won't. You're not doing the biweekly payment, right? So the traditional sense of the biweekly payment is you take what was the monthly mortgage payment. So I think what you're conflating, Mark, and I think the confusion is that you're thinking biweekly payment for the mortgage and the biweekly payment you get from the paycheck. So what the biweekly extra payment is you simply take the monthly mortgage payment. So let's say, $1,000 for your mortgage payment. You divide that by half and you pay it every other week, right? Which results in 26 half mortgage payments in a year. So 26 divided by 2 gives you 13. So essentially you're making 13 full month worth of mortgage payment to the mortgage, or simply put, you're just making 1 month of a mortgage payment extra per year. And yes, does that help you save money on the interest and the time in paying down the mortgage? Absolutely. Okay. On average, I see, 5 to 7 year reduction against the 30 years. So if you start out with a 30-year mortgage, right, doing the bi-weekly mortgage payment will help perhaps reduce the mortgage from 30 to 26 or 25. What I'm referring to, the HELOC strategy, is you're taking the paycheck that also happens to be on a biweekly or first and the 15th schedule that you use to reduce the HELOC. Okay, two very different things, right? So I know it's easy to conflate those two, but two different concepts we're talking about here, right? So again, the HELOC strategy or the accelerated payoff strategy is making extra payment to the mortgage. It's so funny that people like to argue with me, which is not even an argument, that there's no way of reducing the mortgage balance without doing extra payments. Like, I know, yes, with the accelerated payoff, you are doing extra payments, right? The difference is that we're just using a better tool to make that happen, right? The tool is more efficient. It's kind of like going somewhere on a horse versus going somewhere on a supercar. All right. If you and I were to make a road trip from New York to Los Angeles, right? Would you want to go with a horse or would you rather go on a car? I mean, a horse would be pretty cool. I mean, it'll be pretty scenic, I would say, but it'll probably take really long time, right? Weeks on end. With the car, right? Probably like what, a week, I think. I've never done it. I do want to do that one day. So that's the point, right? Like, I'm saying that the accelerated payoff strategy is paying extra, but just a different tool that allows us to take advantage of a reduced interest cost as well as time along the way, simply because of how the mechanism of interest cost calculation works. All right. So yeah, I'm not saying that this is not extra payment. It is doing extra payment just with a different tool. Scott Ramsey is asking, are there HELOCs that allow you to pay bills from the line of credit versus moving funds into a checking account? Yes, there is. I'm sure Tenacious Mortgage will tell you all about it. But there are tools that will natively allow you to make payments directly out of the HELOC. In fact, in our company, we recommend a lender that does that. So Scott, if you want to book a call with us, put it in the chat. In fact, for any of you guys that want to book a chat with our team, I'll put the link in the comment so that you guys can book a free consult with our team. I know we're also kind of running out of time. We had about 10 minutes. Yeah, I'll put in the YouTube chat as well as the Zoom chat so that both of you guys can see it. So for those that are watching on YouTube or Zoom, wherever you guys are watching this, I got the link posted in the live chat with the link to schedule a free 30-minute call. No strings attached. We're not going to ask you to pay a fee. There's nothing like that. Book a call with us. We'll be happy to, you know, not only take a look at your situation to see could you and should you do the strategy, but we'll show you how to work with us, not only to work with a recommended lender, but we also have tools and automation and software, AI tools that could help you make the implementation of the strategy much easier. Because I know if you try to do this by yourself, it takes a lot of work. Even I'll admit that, right? But we have automation tools that help pretty much make this virtually, on autopilot, which makes it really, really easy to implement. Okay. All right. Are you with RYU or are there competitors? I'm not sure, but I think you called me 2 or 3 months ago and said only a few months of mortgage paid. I didn't have any equity for HELOC, so suggest I apply for a PLOC to do this. No, we're not with the company RYU. We're a separate company. Arguably the best one because we're highly rated, highest rated actually. I think we have 600 total 5-star reviews and they only have 200. And that's the only time I'll talk about a competitor. But no, we're definitely better than them. So um, yeah, so definitely schedule a call with us because yeah, a personal line of credit is certainly a tool that you could use, Mark. Yeah, I mean, a HELOC was certainly could be better, but PLOC nevertheless will be a tool that you could consider and use. Again, schedule a call with us. We'll be happy to take a look. Every personal situation is so different that I'm very careful about giving like blanket suggestions, right? Because I know some people, again, even with this whole strategy, to some people, this strategy is not going to work for them at all, right? It might actually have a negative consequence by implementing the strategy. But if you have good credit, good cash flow, good income, and you're just looking for a vehicle to pay off your mortgage faster so that you can build up your investment, build up your retirement, and you just want to have peace of mind, then yeah, this strategy could be a great fit for you and could be the vehicle that you're looking for. Um, but yeah, Mark, if you want to schedule a call with us, definitely let's chat. The difference between a HELOC and a PLOC, from a mechanism standpoint, there's really not a big difference. A HELOC would use your home equity as a collateral, right? And therefore, from the bank's perspective, there's going to be less risk and therefore lesser of an interest cost for you as a consumer. The PLOC doesn't have any collateral. It's an unsecured line of credit. So it's perceived as a higher risk from a bank's perspective. And for the consumer or the borrower, you might actually end up seeing higher interest costs or higher interest rate, I should say. But that shouldn't be a deterrence to making the strategy work, right? There are instances where I see even using a PLOC, it's going to beat the mortgage, right? In terms of interest savings, as well as being able to pay off the mortgage a lot faster and sooner. So yeah, a PLOC is certainly an option that I would consider. That's how I started. I used the PLOC because I'm a veteran. I got a VA loan to buy my house, so I had no equity whatsoever, right? This is great for veterans as well if you have a VA loan. So I got a VA loan being a veteran, and so I had no equity to start with. I started with a PLOC, started chunking down my mortgage fast, and then I switched over to HELOC once I started having equity. Can you use your rental to get a HELOC? Yes, you can. So there are HELOCs for rental property or investment properties. They are out there. The banks and lenders are going to be more strict, right? They're going to scrutinize you a little bit more. They want to see better credit, better equity, loan to value, and so forth. Okay. What about DSCR or DISCR? So yes, there are DISCR-based HELOC loans out there. Again, because DISCR loans tend to be more so on the riskier side, I would say. You're going to see more scrutiny in terms of underwriting, as well as you're probably going to see higher interest rate as well. All right. Coach Simon Finance says, "Hey Sam, I'm also a success story of using the strategy to pay off my house. My wife and I were debt free on October 13, 2023. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. That's what I'm talking about, baby. So yeah, Coach Steele. Yeah, I know who this is. So just for those that are watching on YouTube and Zoom, are like, what? Like, who is this? I know who this is. So yeah, just inside story, wink, wink. All right. So we were down to the last 4 minutes, guys. Again, just want to make this announcement that next week, for next week's live stream, we are going to do it on a Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Central Time, not 2 p.m. Again, we made this shift so that more of you guys can tune in. I know a lot of you guys are working in office. I get it. So we're going to make that shift. You guys have my wife to thank for, as she has allowed me to spend the evening with you guys as opposed to with the family. So make sure you give a round of applause to my wife for allowing me to switch to a Wednesday as opposed to a Thursday afternoon. So I'll answer one or two more questions, probably simple ones that we could tackle, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. If you are tuning in for the first time, be sure to subscribe and like. Check out some of the other videos we have. We have a ton of videos on this topic for HELOC, using it to pay off your mortgage faster. Arguably, I would say we are the best channel for the strategy. And yeah, definitely stay tuned. One more question. Louis says, can you get two HELOCs, one on your personal home and one on your rental? Yeah, absolutely. You certainly can get two HELOCs separately, right? Now, for the sake of the strategy, you won't need to, but I also understand why you might be thinking about that, because you might simply want just more access, right? Be able to have access to your equity as much as you can, which I get it. I'm a huge proponent of that. It's one of those just in case, right? Get it while the getting is good. Um, but if I'm speaking from kind of a textbook answer to making the strategy work, you don't need to have two HELOCs. Just having one will be just fine to get you going with the strategy. Because you can use that same HELOC to not only pay off the primary residence, but you can also use that same HELOC to pay off the investment property as well. Okay. Okay, one more question, and we'll probably end it here. Luis LeBron says, just wanted to say I paid off $85,000 in years using the HELOC method. So thank you for showing us the method. Oh man, that's awesome, Luis. Congratulations. Awesome, awesome. In 4 years. Okay, awesome, man. Well, Luis, congratulations. Super proud of you, and keep going. I would love to see you with a paid off home. That'd be wonderful. Okay. All right. Especially if someone locked in 2 to 3% interest rate back in late 2010s, early 2020s. This is bunk. No, I don't think so, Ember. I don't think so. You just get a second lien HELOC and take small chunks. Okay. The interest rate is not the driver for the strategy. I mean, that's the mistake and the yeah, it's just a mistake and a misunderstanding that I see all the time from people thinking, oh, the HELOC interest rate is variable, it's high, it's not gonna work. Rah, rah. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, rah, it's not gonna work, right? Uh, it will work. Okay, well, I should say it could work, right? There are instances where interest rates will matter, right? I'm not dismissing that fact, but um, the point is that the interest rate is not the driver. It's not the key thing that's making the strategy work. It's not. Okay. All right. All right. Let me see if I missed any questions. Well, if you guys do, let me know. Great impression. It's not the tumor. It's not the interest rate. Right. I can do a better Arnold than that. I'll have to keep practicing. All right, guys. Yeah, I know it was awkward. I'm an awkward man. I learned VB from your 23-minute video like 5 to 6 years ago. I forgot the title. Then I found Denzel and all the others. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I've been around the block, man. I've been around for some time. Okay. Yeah, I've been doing this for some time. We're almost 10 years. I've seen it all. I've seen all the questions. I've seen all the arguments, all the people. Not saying that I'm a master at it. Um, I still have things to learn for sure, right? I'm still a student of finance. So I'm still learning, right? And so should you guys be, right? I'm there's stuff that I don't know about finance that I've yet to still discover and to learn and to unpack. And don't ask me about crypto because I don't know anything about crypto, right? But do ask me about real estate. I can kind of give you all kinds of answers on that. So yeah. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. It's 3:01 my time. So the next time I'll see you all will be 8 p.m. Central next Wednesday, which will be Wednesday the 10th. So I'll see you guys then. Until then, I'll see you guys. Merry Christmas, right? I think I'm allowed to say that now, right? It's that time of the year. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we'll see you guys back next Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe and like